So I wanted to talk a little bit about how we work, because I think having the kind of instruction manual for how our mind works really makes a difference. Now, as a human being, your body is in a real reality, it's in the real world. But the thing is that actually your whole sense of the world is created through your ability to think. Your mind does it naturally. It takes in information from the senses and we form a sense of the world. But the thing is that we all form a different one. And this is changing constantly because our thinking flows and changes. So a human being's environment is actually thought made. It's made of this energy we call thought. So it's kind of like a fish. A fish swims in water, it's surrounded by water, and it's used to living in water, it doesn't even notice it. Well, that's the same thing for a human being. The water is thought for us. Now, if you put some poison into the water, it contaminates it and the fish is going to get ill. Well, it's the same for us. If our mind becomes full of negative thoughts, negative stories about life, then our environment's contaminated. And what it does is it changes the way our mood. It makes us see the world very negatively. We get hopeless. It changes our personality. We become self-focused, we become stressed and anxious and confused and insecure. So it's really important to recognize that we've got to keep this environment, this mind, this thought healthy. So what I want to highlight here is there's only one reason in the world that you're going to get negative feelings. And that's down to your mind making negative thoughts. I call them kind of negative stories, fearful stories. So whenever I get feelings of tension and stress and overwhelm, I know that my mind is making fearful stories. That's 100% of the reason. It's not coming from what someone said to me or from what's going on in the world around me or what's in my bank account or what my partner said to me. It's coming from the thoughts that I am creating, the stories my mind is making and believing. And so as we start to realize that, we realize we're just suffering from thought, just energy. It's like having a horror movie on. The horror movie on the TV can't hurt you, it's just light. Well, whatever I'm suffering from, whatever's making me tense and stressed, I don't need to know what it is, but I know it's made out of energy, I know it's made out of thought. I can just rest with it. And this just gives me a break. And then everything starts to dissolve and change. So here it's really important to just not take any of your thinking too seriously, not take anything in your life too seriously, and just allow everything to go quieter. Now, when it goes back to being almost dead silent, dead still, that's what we would call a mentally healthy state. Now here, you experience a deep quiet, a deep sense of peace. Now we've got to know that is what we would call health. You've got to be sensitive to that and be able to tell when you're in it. Because a lot of the time, most of us are walking around with low-level noise in our head and we think we're fine. We don't feel particularly stressed and overwhelmed. But actually, we're out of that mentally healthy state. So it's important that we start to recognize that even with that low-level tension, our body's letting us know that we've got negative stories. It's letting us know that we're not seeing the world clearly. So if you can start to read the signals in your body really clearly, it will start to change how you experience well-being. Because I used to think that a feeling of stress meant there was something wrong in my life. I've got to change it quick. No, it just meant that I was making up negative stories. Or I used to get really upset if someone had said something horrible to me or didn't do what I asked them to when I was a teacher in class. Then I started to realize, no, you're just making negative stories. That's the only reason that we've got the feelings of stress, anxiety, anger, overwhelm. And it's great to be able to see really why those things are happening. And you end up taking full responsibility for them, but you also see your own innocence. And so as you start to see this, you've got the full picture of how human beings work. We live in thought 100% of the time. We all make our own sense of reality 100% of the time. And if we don't feel feelings of peace and quiet, we're making negative stories. Now, we're built to work from a sense of peace and quiet. We just think naturally here. You look at the world's best sportsmen or musicians or artists, they talk about a flow all the time. Well, what that means is that they're just thinking naturally. They're thinking with no negative stories, they're not trying, they're giving up. And the body just thinks naturally. Just as the body naturally beats the heart, naturally sorts your liver function out or your kidney function out. So it's important to recognize that we can all go back to that. You know, if you look at someone like Viktor Frankl, he went through Auschwitz for 4 years in the concentration camps in World War II. He had the most traumatic experiences of any human being on the planet. And he talks about rediscovering his mental health just a few months after being released. Well, if it's possible for him to regain that, he wrote 16 books on happiness and toured the world helping people after that. You know, if it's possible to regain that, then for all of us, we can get back to it. And fundamentally what it is, a sense of mental health, a sense of being yourself, finding yourself, experiencing peace, it's all the same thing. All it is a sense of experiencing life. The Buddha used to tell people, if you want to find who you are, you've got to try and mimic a lily. You've got to be in the same level of existence as a lily. Well, they just exist. Plants just exist. That's what you're looking for. Just existing, not knowing anything, giving up and taking things so seriously. And here you find you feel really good, you feel like you're on holiday, and you end up getting loads more done, and you do things so much better. You automatically connect to people better, you're way more creative, you're happier. And this is always there. You're no more alive at one moment than you are at next. But the thing is, you're not aware of it. And so what we're after is getting a really clear sense of being alive. That's what mental health is. It's kind of like every day we get the same amount of sunshine. It doesn't change. And the sun doesn't get damaged by any of the clouds that come across it. But because clouds come over and obscure it, some days the sun's there and we can't really feel it or be aware of it. It's still there though, and it's undamaged. And that's what I want to highlight, is that if a person doesn't have any fearful stories, any negative thoughts going on in their head, they'll feel peace. It's like they've got no clouds in the sky. They'll just feel being alive, they'll be thinking naturally, and they'll feel good. But as soon as those negative thoughts start to come in, doesn't matter what they are, and you won't know what they are much of the time, but your feelings are great, they let you know you've got them. Well, it's just knowing, okay, this means that I'm not seeing the world clearly. And you know what? I can rest with any thought in the world. If I just know that I'm only experiencing thinking 100% of the time, every single second I'm alive, that's great. I can chill with it. I can relax. And you'll find it settles and it goes back to being still. And here we're healthy again. Don't worry about staying here. Just enjoy it for what it is. You're going to go in and out all the time. I still spend most of my day out in a slightly noisy mind. It's just so nice to know that I can reset, that I can get a fresh start regularly. So I hope this has been helpful, and thanks for listening.